My golden child brother trashed my apartment to teach me a lesson after a fight, so I pressed charges, and now he's homeless. I'm 34, and if we're getting real, I've spent my entire life trying to build independence. My family made sure of that. Firstborn, the responsible one, the one who got the lectures about preparing for the real world. Meanwhile, my younger brother, let's call him D, was the golden child. D is 26 now, but my parents still act like he's some fragile prodigy who can't be held accountable. Growing up, our family dynamic was always two-tiered. One set of rules for me, another for D. Every time he messed up, they bailed him out. No questions asked. And if I ever complained, it was brushed off as sibling rivalry. So, I left home as soon as I could, determined to prove I could make it on my own. I thought that being out on my own meant I could leave their twisted idea of family loyalty behind me. But somehow, D managed to find a way to keep inserting himself in my life, and not in a good way. 2 weeks ago, D called me. It was one of his routine pleas for money, saying he was going through a rough time. He didn't ask how I was doing. He never does. He only calls when he needs something. I'd helped him out before, but this time, I'd had enough. I told him flat out, no, enough. I've got my own stuff to handle. He went off on this tirade, calling me a selfish jerk and complaining about how I never help him out. Said he was family and that I was supposed to help him when he was down. That's when I told him, maybe if you got a job and learned to manage your money, you wouldn't be in this mess. It hit a nerve. He hung up, furious, and I figured that was the end of it. But I underestimated how far D was willing to go to teach me a lesson. The next day, I came home from work to find my apartment destroyed. I'm talking demolished. The couch was slashed, the TV screen shattered, every drawer in my dresser yanked open and emptied. My clothes? Torn up. My laptop smashed on the floor like someone took a hammer to it. Even the kitchen was wrecked. Food dumped out everywhere, cabinet doors ripped off the hinges. Standing there, looking at the ruins of my stuff, I felt this anger surge up that I hadn't felt in years. Then, I saw it. D's disgusting green and yellow cap, lying right there by the broken laptop. His calling card. He'd actually left it behind, like he wanted me to know it was him. I called my parents. It took me 3 tries before Mom picked up, and the moment I started telling her about the destruction in my apartment, she sighed, annoyed, like I was interrupting her. But when I mentioned D's cap, her voice changed. She actually started defending him. "Oh, honey, you don't know for sure it was him," she said, with that tone that used to drive me crazy as a kid. "He wouldn't do something like that. I mean, he might have been trying to teach you a lesson, but not this." Teach me a lesson? I was practically shouting. You think trashing my home is a lesson? Maybe if he'd been a bit more supportive, he wouldn't have felt so cornered, she said almost dismissively. Cornered? I repeated, the words like acid on my tongue. Are you kidding me, Mom? He's 26. He's an adult, not some poor, helpless kid. When are you and Dad going to stop making excuses for him? Lower your voice, she hissed, like I was embarrassing her. You don't understand the pressure he's under. What about the pressure I'm under? I fired back. Do you have any idea what I deal with just trying to keep my life together without constantly bailing him out? I work full-time. I pay my own bills. I don't trash people's homes because I'm under pressure. Maybe if you weren't so cold with him, she snapped, he wouldn't feel the need to act out. Family is supposed to support each other. I almost laughed. Support? You mean like how you support me by blaming me when he screws up? Newsflash, Mom, this isn't support. It's enabling. She fell silent, and for a moment I thought I'd finally gotten through to her. But then she sighed. I don't know why you're making this such a big deal. It's just things, sweetheart. Just stuff. Just stuff. I looked around at the wreckage of my apartment. My things, my privacy, my sanctuary, obliterated because my brother couldn't handle hearing no for once in his life. Do you have any idea how long I worked to afford all this stuff? I've been on my own since I was 18. Do you know what that's like? But she didn't. She never did. And she never would. Look, she said finally, I'll talk to him. But he's your brother, and at the end of the day, you're gonna have to forgive him. This isn't something to drag the police into. That was it. I'd had enough. You're right, Mom. It's not something to drag the police into. It's something to drag a judge into. I hung up on her before she could argue and dialed 911. I gave the operator the rundown. My apartment trashed, a clear suspect, and no doubt in my mind who'd done it. A couple of hours later, the cops showed up. They took photos, made notes, and asked the usual questions. I showed them Dee's hat, and they didn't look surprised in the least. The officer taking my statement nodded knowingly when I mentioned family issues. Turns out, they'd seen this kind of family loyalty nonsense before. They even encouraged me to press charges, pointing out that people like Dee don't usually stop unless they're forced to face real consequences. So I did it. I pressed charges against my own brother. For once, he was going to have to answer for what he'd done, and it felt like ripping off a bandage you've been afraid to touch. Painful, but also this deep, almost cathartic relief. For once, I was standing up for myself and not letting him walk all over me. The fallout was immediate. My parents blew up my phone with voicemails that escalated from pleading to outright threats. My dad, who never raised his voice, actually told me I was tearing the family apart. Mom was sobbing, saying she couldn't believe her own son would do something so heartless. She called me a traitor to the family, like pressing charges against the guy who vandalized my home was the ultimate betrayal. It was wild how twisted their priorities were. And Dee? He had the nerve to show up at my doorstep a few days later, after he'd been served. He looked disheveled, dark circles under his eyes, but I wasn't about to feel sorry for him. He had on that same arrogant expression he used to wear when he was a kid, right before he'd lie his way out of trouble. He shoved his hands in his pockets and leaned against my doorframe, smirking. "So, you're really doing this, huh? Turning your back on family. Guess all that talk about blood being thicker than water was just crap to you." I crossed my arms, blocking his way in. "Don't start with the guilt trips, Dee. You trashed my home. What did you expect me to do? Just sweep it under the rug like Mom and Dad always do?" He laughed, low and mocking. "Oh, please. It's not like you can't afford new stuff. You're doing just fine while the rest of us are struggling. You didn't even try to help me out, and now you're acting like I'm some criminal." "You are a criminal, Dee. That's what vandalism is, in case you haven't noticed." I could feel my voice rising, but I didn't care. "And don't pull the struggling card with me. I worked my butt off to get here. You've had everything handed to you and you still think it's not enough." His face hardened, the smirk gone. "You think you're so high and mighty just because you moved out early and got some office job. I bet you think you're better than me, don't you?" I was done trying to reason with him. "You're not getting it, Dee. This isn't about who's better. It's about respect. Respect for my life, my space, my hard work. But you wouldn't understand that because you've never had to earn a thing on your own." He took a step forward, his voice dropping into something colder. "If you really go through with this, I'll be homeless. You know that, right? I got nowhere else to go. I'll be living out of my car if I'm lucky." I held his gaze. "That's not my problem. You did this to yourself." His expression twisted into something ugly, bitter. "Fine. Guess I know where we stand now. Just don't come crying to me when you need something one day. Family's forever, but I guess you don't care about that." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Oh, I care about family, all right. I just don't care about family that treats me like an ATM and a doormat. Now get out of here before I call the cops again." He muttered something under his breath, but he left, slamming the door so hard it rattled the frame. I stood there for a long moment, listening to the silence settle back into my apartment. It felt heavy, final, but also liberating. I was done. I was done being the good sibling, the one who put up with everything for the sake of family harmony. Days went by, and each one came with more calls, more texts, mostly from my parents. I blocked their numbers, but they found other ways. Mom emailed me long, emotional screeds about how families stick together, and how I was destroying my relationship with my baby brother. Dad, on the other hand, was furious. He sent me a particularly scathing email that said I was kicking my own brother when he was down, and that I should be ashamed of myself. The trial was fast, and Dee didn't have much of a defense. He couldn't explain away the evidence, the hat, the texts we'd exchanged, my destroyed belongings. He got sentenced to community service and had to pay restitution, though everyone knew he'd never actually pay me back. As for my parents, they showed up to the court hearing, sitting as far from me as they could. Mom even gasped dramatically when the verdict came down, like she was in a bad soap opera. When the judge announced his sentence, she stood up and wailed, "This isn't justice. This is tearing our family apart." But it wasn't justice for them, and it wasn't justice for me, either. The truth is, this isn't the satisfying closure moment they make it seem like in movies. I left the courtroom feeling raw, like I'd lost something I couldn't get back. And maybe I had. It was a quiet few weeks after that. My phone stopped lighting up with notifications. My apartment, even after I'd replaced what was damaged, felt emptier than before. I tried telling myself I'd done the right thing, and maybe I had, but family doesn't just go away, no matter how toxic they are. They stay with you, lodged somewhere between the ribs, a dull ache you can't ignore. Then, out of the blue, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I picked up, and there was my mom's voice, quieter than usual. "Your father wants to talk to you." I almost hung up right there, but something stopped me. Maybe some leftover shred of hope that they'd finally understand. "Fine," I said, and waited as she passed the phone over. Dad's voice came through, harsh and cold. "You've shamed us all, you know that? Pressing charges against your own brother. You're a disgrace." "Really?" I shot back, because I thought being the only one who held him accountable for anything made me the only decent one in this family. "Your brother's homeless now," he snapped, living out of his car. "I hope you're happy." I took a deep breath, letting the anger settle. "I'm not happy about any of this, Dad. But maybe, just maybe, if you two had actually parented him instead of enabling every little thing he did, he wouldn't be where he is right now. You might hate me, but I'm done cleaning up after him." There was silence on the other end. I almost thought they'd hung up. But then Dad's voice came back, low and bitter. "Don't expect to be part of this family again. Not after what you've done." The line went dead. I stood there, phone in hand, feeling strangely calm. I'd heard the words, but they didn't sting the way I thought they would. I'd finally cut the cord, and while it felt like tearing out a piece of myself, it also felt like freedom. Months passed. I moved to a new place, started building my life from the ground up. Real friends filled the spaces my family used to occupy, people who respected me, who didn't demand everything and give nothing back. For the first time, I felt like I was building a family that wasn't tied by blood, but by choice. And it was better. So much better than anything I'd ever known. Now and then, I heard through the grapevine about Dee's life. He'd bounced around, staying with friends until he'd burned those bridges too. I'd thought maybe a stint of living in his car would wake him up, make him realize he couldn't just coast on handouts forever. But last I heard, he'd moved back in with my parents, who were once again shelling out money they didn't have to keep their golden boy comfortable. And me? I was finally free of it. Free of the guilt, the responsibility, the constant expectations. They could keep enabling him for the rest of their lives if that's what they wanted. I wasn't going back. If there's one thing I learned through all of this, it's that family isn't just about blood. It's about respect, boundaries, and accountability. And sometimes the only way to get those things is to walk away from the people who refuse to give them to you. So, if you're in a similar place, wondering if it's worth the fight to hold toxic people accountable, know that it is. It might be messy and it'll hurt like hell, but standing up for yourself is worth it. Every time.